20 forgotten restaurants that defined dining in the 1970s. Ah, the 70s, what a time for eating out in America. Remember those family-run spots, the burger joints with personality, the steakhouses that felt like home? Many are gone now, faded like old photographs. Let's take a stroll down memory lane and revisit 20 eateries that vanished but still hold a special place in our hearts. Burger Chef. Way back in '54, Frank and Donald Thomas hit on a winning idea out in Indianapolis, Indiana. Burger Chef. It seemed like overnight, everyone was talking about it, thanks to some clever ideas. Think about getting the triple threat, the very first combo meal in the country, with a burger, fries, and a drink for just 45 cents. And who could forget the satisfying Big Chef or the popular Super Chef burgers? Those classics kept people coming back. By 1973, Burger Chef was a giant in the fast food world with over 1,000 busy restaurants spread across America. But even giants can stumble. The 1980s brought big changes when General Foods and later Amasco, who also owned Hardee's, took over. Gradually, those familiar Burger Chef spots turned into Hardee's, squeezed out by powerhouses like McDonald's and Burger King. The last Burger Chef served its final customer in 1996, quietly ending a chapter in American fast food, but leaving behind fond memories of simpler meals and tasty burgers we still crave sometimes. Beefsteak Charlie's. Back in the day, Beefsteak Charlie's meant a hearty meal and good times. Charles W. Chisel opened the first one in Manhattan way back in 1910, setting the stage for decades of enjoyment. It had that comfortable pub feel, drawing in crowds for big steaks, generous seafood, and that famous endless salad bar. Not everyone remembers Larry Ellman reviving it in 1976, turning it into an East Coast sensation with over 60 spots buzzing with happy diners. But here's the kicker few understood then. Their offer of unlimited beer, wine, and sangria was both a huge draw and, ultimately, part of its undoing. By the mid-'80s, different dining trends and intense competition started chipping away at its success, making finances shaky. Even an attempted rescue by Bombay Palace restaurants in 1987 couldn't save the day. Slowly, sadly, Beefsteak Charlie's locations shut down one after another, the last one dimming its lights for good in 2009, leaving just the warm echo of those cheerful, abundant dinners behind. Steak and Ale. You recall Steak and Ale, don't you? It was a real game changer for eating out back then. Norman E. Brinker got it started in Dallas, Texas, way back in 1966, and it really defined casual dining for a generation. Stepping inside felt like finding a cozy English inn, all dark with beams overhead and candlelit tables. And that wonderful aroma of herb-roasted prime rib always hung in the air. They hit their stride in the 1980s, spreading to almost 280 locations busy, with people digging into the Kensington Club steak or pioneering that unlimited salad bar, quite something at the time. But tastes shifted come the 1990s, competition got fierce. Even new marketing and menu changes couldn't stop the slide. Sadly, in 2008, Steak and Ale served its final meals. Funny thing about nostalgia, though, word is they staged a comeback in 2024, opening anew across Texas and the Midwest, blending those old favorites with fresh ideas, trying to recapture something special folks dearly missed. Do you remember grabbing breakfast at Sambo's? That place sure stirred up conversation, didn't it? Founded back in 1957 down in sunny Santa Barbara by Sam Battistone Sr. and Newell Bonnet, Sambo's Diner became a familiar sight. They merged their names, not realizing it connected to a children's book that would cause a big stir later on. They built a welcoming diner known for light pancakes, good burgers, and classic comfort food. Families loved the decent prices and those colorful wall paintings showing scenes from the story of Little Black Sambo. The chain grew incredibly fast, reaching a whopping 1,117 spots by 1979, but trouble was brewing. Those murals, and the name itself, once seen as innocent fun, started drawing protests and lawsuits over being racially insensitive. This, piled on top of money problems, pushed the chain toward bankruptcy. By 1981, most Sambo's locations had closed or changed hands, marking the end of a well-known, if complicated, piece of American dining history. The very last one in Santa Barbara held on until 2020, when renewed protests following George Floyd's death finally led it to change its name, closing the book on Sambo's mixed legacy for good. Remember that friendly statue of the kid in checkered overalls holding a giant burger? That was Bob's Big Boy, a place that captured the hearts of many. It all began quite modestly in Glendale, California, back in 1936, when Bob Wine opened a small spot called Bob's Pantry. Just half a year later, he invented the legendary Big Boy Burger, a fantastic double-decker creation that became the chain's signature. With its gleaming chrome, checkered patterns, and inviting booths, Bob's Big Boy felt like stepping back into a simpler time, a favorite stop for families looking for good comfort food. At its peak around 1989, Bob's was serving happy customers in over 240 restaurants across the country. But things started to change after Bob Wine sold the chain to Marriott Corporation in 1967. A series of different owners and some questionable decisions slowly eroded the diner's appeal. Money troubles and strong competition from newer fast food chains didn't help either. Sadly, most Big Boy locations eventually closed down, leaving just a few survivors, mostly in Southern California, carrying on the tradition. The original Burbank location is now a historic landmark, a cherished spot reminding us of birthday meals, family outings, and happy times. White Tower. White Tower Hamburgers. John E. Sachs and his brother Thomas E. Sachs brought those to life in Milwaukee back in 1926, and they caught on quick. Those shiny white buildings looked like little castles, and inside, everything sparkled, especially those stainless steel counters. White Tower always felt clean and simple, a good place for families like mine. I can still picture going with my dad on Saturdays, settling into a booth, waiting for those small, square burgers. They always came out hot, with soft buns and gooey cheese. Back in the 1950s, White Tower had over 230 locations all over the country. But trouble started early. White Castle sued them in '29 because they looked too similar, forcing White Tower to change their look and pay up. Over the years, even though they tried to keep up, tough competition and changing food trends wore them down. One by one, they disappeared from our towns. The very last standing White Tower in Toledo, Ohio, sadly burned down in April 2022, ending a whole era of simple burger joys. Sizzler. Here's a curious story. A steakhouse that got so carried away with its salad bar, it kind of overshadowed its own steaks. That was Sizzler. Back in 1958, Dell and Helen Johnson opened their first family steak spot in Culver City, California. They quickly became popular by offering tasty steaks without breaking the bank. By the mid-60s, the inviting smell of grilled steaks and seafood was drawing folks into more than 100 Sizzler locations, making it a well-known name, especially out west. But here's something interesting. Facing stiff competition in the 80s from places like Outback and Red Lobster, Sizzler decided to add a salad bar. What started simple soon grew into a huge buffet packed with fruits, pasta salads, and all sorts of sides. It became so popular that it started to steal the spotlight from the steaks that originally made them famous. Ironically, this move hurt their reputation for quality steaks. By 1996, money problems pushed Sizzler into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, leading them to close over 130 restaurants. Though its best days are past, Sizzler's story serves as a fond, if cautionary, reminder about trying new things and sticking to what made you great in the first place. Howard Johnson's. It's hard to believe how quietly Howard Johnson's faded away, taking a big chunk of American road trip memories with it. Those signature orange roofs started small in 1925, just a little soda fountain in Quincy, Massachusetts. But soon, Hojo's became a welcome sight for travelers all across the country's highways. You could count on them for good, hearty food, like their famous fried clams or classic hot dogs. But the real star? Their 28 flavors of ice cream. It was so good, some folks actually thought Howard Johnson invented the stuff. He didn't claim to, but he sure perfected it. By the 60s and 70s, there were over 1,000 Hojo's restaurants bustling with families and travelers. But times changed. Fast food joints like McDonald's and Burger King offered quicker, cheaper meals, and America's eating habits shifted. Slowly, those orange roofs started disappearing, the lights went dim. The chain just dwindled away until 2022, when the very last Howard Johnson's restaurant in Lake George, New York, finally closed its doors. It marked the quiet end of an icon, leaving many of us wishing for just one more taste of that ice cream. Brown Derby. Can you picture Hollywood stars eating lunch inside a restaurant literally shaped like a giant brown derby hat? That was the Brown Derby for you. Founded back in 1926 by Wilson Misner, Herbert K. Somborn, and the famous movie mogul Jack Warner, it instantly became the place to see and be seen in Los Angeles. Sitting right there on Wilshire Boulevard, this quirky, hat-shaped building was pure Hollywood glamour, drawing legends like Clark Gable and Judy Garland. Inside, they dined under funny drawings of themselves and other stars. Besides the unique building, the Derby served up some classic dishes, including the now world-famous Cobb salad, which was often tossed right at your table by co-owner Robert H. Cobb. But as American dining shifted towards more casual styles in the 1970s, the Derby's fancy, upscale vibe started to feel a bit dated. Costs went up, customer numbers went down, and the glamorous shine began to fade. The original Wilshire location closed in 1980, and the others weren't far behind. Now, the Brown Derby exists only in stories and memories of old Hollywood elegance, a time when eating out was an event. Lums. Did you ever try a hot dog steamed in beer? If so, you probably remember Lums. This unique spot was started by brothers Stuart and Clifford Perlman way back in 1956 on Miami Beach. It began as just a small hot dog stand, but quickly grew popular across America thanks to its signature beer-steamed hot dogs, a tasty idea nobody else was doing. By the early 1970s, Lums restaurants were popping up everywhere, over 400 locations reaching from coast to coast, and even into Puerto Rico and Europe. They became so successful that the Perlman brothers even bought the famous Caesars Palace Casino in Las Vegas in 1969. Shortly after, in 1971, they sold the Lums chain to John Y. Brown, the entrepreneur who later bought KFC. He tried introducing the Ollie Burger, a recipe from a well-known Miami spot, but the original magic started to fade. After a Swiss company called Wiener Wald bought Lums in 1978, financial problems started brewing. By 1982, Lums had to file for bankruptcy, beginning its slow decline. The very last restaurant finally closed in Bellevue, Nebraska, in 2017. But for those who enjoyed a Lums beer-steamed dog, the unique flavor and memories remain. Wags. Who would have thought Walgreens, the pharmacy, could make a decent pancake? Well, back in 1975, they jumped into the restaurant business by launching Wags. It was designed as a comfortable family diner, serving familiar favorites like burgers and big breakfasts, often 24 hours a day. Competing with places like Denny's and Big Boy, Wags became a popular stop for night shift workers, families needing a budget-friendly meal, and anyone looking for a late-night bite. Those glowing neon signs were a welcome sight in Chicago and Florida, offering a warm booth, endless coffee refills, and a friendly face, no matter the hour. Despite its initial success, Walgreens decided to get out of the food business, selling all 91 Wags locations to Marriott in 1988. Unfortunately, Marriott didn't seem to have the right touch. Management issues and maybe a loss of focus led to declining popularity among the regulars. Gradually, the familiar Wags signs came down, replaced by Shoney's or just empty storefronts. By 1991, all the doors had closed for good, ending a surprisingly popular chapter pretty quickly. Though Wags is gone, the memories of late-night coffee and early morning breakfast remain. Carol's. Launched in 1960 by Herbert and Slotnick, Carol's began as a straightforward burger and fries drive-in located in Syracuse, New York. Its name was notably derived from the daughter of Leo S. Moran's, a co-owner associated with the Tasty Freeze brand. Carol's quickly carved out a niche for itself, emerging as a popular alternative choice for customers seeking something different from the burgeoning McDonald's chain. The restaurant became recognized for several distinctive menu items, including its signature club burger, the sea fillet fish sandwich, and its crispy country chicken offering. Fueled by this popularity, Carol's expanded its footprint significantly throughout upstate New York and into Pennsylvania. By the mid-1970s, the chain had reached its zenith, operating approximately 150 distinct locations. However, this success attracted intense competition from the dominant fast food players, McDonald's and Burger King. Finding it increasingly difficult to match the vast marketing power of these giants, Carol's made a strategic shift. Starting in 1975, the company began converting many of its existing restaurants into Burger King franchises. This transition marked the decline of the original brand in the U.S., with the final Carol's restaurant reportedly closing its doors in Batavia, New York, around 1981. Interestingly, the Carol's name persisted internationally, continuing operations in Finland until 2012, at which point those locations were rebranded under the Hesburger name. Shakey's Pizza. Before pizza mostly meant delivery boxes arriving at your door, there was Shakey's, where every pie came with live music and a lively crowd. It all started in 1954 when Sherwood, Shakey Johnson, and Ed Plummer opened the first Shakey's Pizza Parlor up in Sacramento, California. Going into Shakey's felt like joining a party, with upbeat Dixieland jazz playing, people laughing, and that wonderful smell of baking pizza mixed with crispy fried chicken. It wasn't just a place to eat. It was where families celebrated, friends gathered, and folks shared pitchers of cold beer. In the 1970s, Shakey's good food and fun atmosphere helped it grow to nearly 350 bustling spots across the USA. But things changed. As delivery became the norm and people started eating at home more, Shakey's lively vibe started to feel a bit dated. Two franchisees tried to revive things in 1984, but couldn't quite recapture the old magic. Later, under new ownership in Knapp Pacific Holdings, the decline continued, and most of those iconic parlors quietly closed. Still, the memories of those fun nights filled with music, pizza, and good company remain warm for those of us lucky enough to have been there. Red Barn. Ever grab a burger inside a building that looked just like a barn? That was the idea behind Red Barn. Back in 1961, over in Springfield, Ohio, Don Six, Martin Levine, and Jim Kirst dreamed up this unique fast food place. Shaped like a big, cheerful red barn, it drew families in for favorites like the Big Barney Burger, which actually came out before McDonald's Big Mac. Red Barn became a familiar sight across the US, Canada, and even Australia, growing to around 400 locations. They were ahead of their time too, offering the popular Barnbuster Burger and one of the very first self-serve salad bars. I still chuckle remembering my Uncle Joe piling coleslaw on his burger, thinking it was lettuce. He insisted it was great, but the good times didn't roll on forever. When City Investing Company bought Red Barn in 1978, they seemed more interested in the property than the restaurants. Support dried up, popularity faded, and the franchises started disappearing. The last Red Barn shut its doors quietly in 1988. Folks still look back fondly on those days, remembering how fun it felt to eat in that bright red barn. Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. Not too many places announce your dessert with sirens and drums, but Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor wasn't just any ice cream shop. Started in 1963 by Bob Farrell and Ken McCarthy out in Portland, Oregon, Farrell's quickly won America over with its wild ice cream concoctions and party atmosphere. Walking in felt like stepping back into an 1890s carnival, old-timey decorations, player pianos banging out tunes, and staff dressed up in colorful costumes. The absolute highlight was the zoo, a massive sundae they'd carry through the restaurant with flashing lights and cheering, making kids and adults go wild. By 1975, Farrell's was incredibly popular with over 120 parlors nationwide. But after Marriott took over in 1972, some of that unique magic started to fade. Changing tastes and tough competition made it hard to keep going. There was a brief attempt to bring it back in the 2000s, fueled by nostalgia, but the last location in Brea, California, closed for good in 2019. It marked the end of a really fun American tradition filled with laughter, celebrations, and desserts served with unforgettable flair. Gino's Hamburgers. Just saying Gino Giant takes me right back to grabbing burgers with buddies on a Friday night. Gino's Hamburgers got its start in 1957 in Dundalk, Maryland, thanks to Baltimore Colts football stars Gino Marchetti and Alan Amich, along with partners Joe Campanella and Louis Fisher. People immediately loved their juicy burgers, especially the big Gino Giant piled high with fixings and their top-notch sirloin sandwiches. What made them really stand out was their smart partnership with Kentucky Fried Chicken. You could get the Colonel's famous chicken right alongside a great Gino's burger. Soon, families and sports fans filled the booths at over 300 Gino's spots dotted across the Mid-Atlantic region. But as the 70s turned into the 80s, the pressure from the bigger fast food chains started to mount. Business slowed, profits dipped, and eventually, Marriott Corporation bought them out, changing most Gino's locations into Roy Rogers restaurants by 1982. For many loyal customers, it felt like losing a part of the neighborhood. The restaurants may be gone, but the memories of those fantastic burgers and good times under the neon lights linger warmly, a tasty legacy of a place that proudly served great burgers and chicken. Henry's Hamburgers. Hard to believe now, but Henry's Hamburgers used to sell cheeseburgers for only 15 cents. People thought that was pretty fantastic back then. Henry started in Chicago in 1954, created by the same folks who ran Bressler's Ice Cream. It quickly won over hungry Americans across the country. They had the famous brown bag special, a tasty double cheeseburger, crispy fries, and a cold soda, all packed neatly in a simple brown paper bag. It was delicious convenience. By the early 1960s, Henry's was a common sight with over 200 busy locations, using catchy slogans like, "Aren't you hungry for a Henry's?" Families and teenagers loved the cheap eats, and especially those creamy milkshakes. But just as Henry's seemed unstoppable, the fast food competition got really intense. Big players like McDonald's grew stronger, and Henry struggled to keep up. Changes in ownership and corporate issues within Bressler's didn't help either, leading to more closures. Today, incredibly, just one single Henry's restaurant remains open in Benton Harbor, Michigan. It survives by playing up the nostalgia and tailoring its menu to local tastes. For those who remember its heyday, Henry's still brings back mouth-watering thoughts of good, simple burgers and fries enjoyed right out the bag. Minnie Pearl's Chicken. Minnie Pearl's Chicken, folks said it was pretty good, at least when it was cooked right. Named after the famous country comedian Minnie Pearl, whose real name was Sarah Ophelia Colley Cannon. This fried chicken chain jumped into the mix back in 1966. Started by a couple of lawyers from Nashville, Tennessee, The idea was to cash in on the fried chicken boom and give Colonel Sanders a run for his money. With Minnie's famous straw hat on the logo and a promise of Southern charm, people were curious to try it. Pretty quickly, over 100 franchise locations opened up around the country. But here's the catch: consistency wasn't their strong point. Sometimes the chicken was perfectly crispy and delicious. Other times, well, not so much. Things weren't great behind the scenes either, with rumors and accusations about fudge numbers and questionable stock dealings flying around. By 1973, with customers losing trust and financial scandals piling up, Minnie Pearl's Chicken basically fell apart, closing most of its locations pretty quietly. Despite the drama, people who ate there sometimes still recall it as a unique, if flawed, piece of America's fast food history. Bill Knapp's. Getting older wasn't so bad if you got to celebrate your birthday at Bill Knapp's. Clinton B. Knapp started this wonderful restaurant back in 1948 in Battle Creek, Michigan. It quickly gained a loyal following because the food tasted just like home cooking. Think delicious fried chicken, tasty ham croquettes, comforting beans soup, and chocolate cake that was simply divine. Families traveled to eat there, enjoying the cozy atmosphere. But the really famous thing about Bill Knapp's was the birthday and anniversary discount. You got a percentage off equal to your age. Grandparents especially loved that deal. At its peak, Bill Knapp's had over 60 friendly locations welcoming diners across Michigan, Ohio, Florida, Illinois, and Indiana. Sadly, as the original loyal customers aged, younger folks didn't flock to it in the same way. An attempt to update the restaurants in 1998 didn't quite work, and then a damaging listeria outbreak hurt their reputation badly. By 2002, the money troubles were too much, forcing Bill Knapp's into Chapter 11 bankruptcy and the closure of all remaining spots. Still, the comforting flavors and happy family memories linger for those who gathered around their tables. Royal Castle. Believe it or not, Florida once had its own little castle chain, not with knights, but with tasty slider-style burgers and refreshing birch beer. William Singer started Royal Castle down in sunny Miami back in 1938. It quickly became the South's popular answer to White Castle up north, winning people over with small, square burgers topped with plenty of minced onions and tangy pickles. Besides those addictive little burgers, Royal Castle was known for fresh squeezed orange juice and good, solid breakfast that kept people coming back day after day. By the 1960s, Royal Castle was a familiar sight, with its neon signs brightening streets across Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and Louisiana, over 175 bustling locations in total. But the good run didn't last forever. When giants like McDonald's and Burger King really took off in the 1970s, Royal Castle found it tough to compete. Things got rockier after Performance Systems bought the chain in 1969. They soon ran into money problems and standards started slipping. Quality went down, customers drifted away, and by 1975, the once successful chain had pretty much closed down. Today, those who remember Royal Castle often smile thinking about late-night burger runs and that unique taste of simpler times. Pup N Taco. How about a place that bravely sold both hot dogs and tacos and actually made it work? That was Pup N Taco. Russell Wendell kicked things off in 1956 with a simple drive-in out in Pasadena, California. Pretty soon, its unusual mix of menu items, crispy tacos, juicy burgers, flavorful pastrami sandwiches, and classic grilled hot dogs became a local favorite. Families would pull up, grab some food, maybe some sweet slushies or an RC cola, and enjoy a casual meal under the bright neon signs. At its peak, Pup N Taco had over 100 spots scattered across Southern California, plus a few popular ones over in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But being successful sometimes attracts attention from a big fish. By the 1980s, rising real estate costs and intense competition for giants like McDonald's, and especially Taco Bell, put a squeeze on Pup N Taco. Taco Bell saw an opportunity and bought 99 of their locations in 1984, gradually converting them and erasing the Pup N Taco name. The very last holdout in Albuquerque finally closed in 2013. What's left are the memories fond, slightly quirky memories of a place that dared to mix things up. Lone Star's Steakhouse and Saloon, a Western-themed chapter. Lone Star's Steakhouse and Saloon launched in 1989, founded by Jamie B. Coulter in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This casual dining chain adopted a distinct Western theme and quickly became famous for menu highlights like mesquite grilled steaks and barbecue ribs. It cultivated a lively, rustic atmosphere intended to remind patrons of classic Texas roadhouses. Riding a wave of popularity through the 1990s, Lone Star expanded significantly, boasting over 260 locations across the United States at its height. Its combination of affordable prices and a vibrant setting appealed broadly to families and casual diners alike. However, the success faced challenges starting in the late 1990s. The chain began to struggle with issues such as market saturation, increasing operational costs, and declining sales revenue. Adding to these difficulties were management changes and heightened competition within the casual dining sector. The cumulative pressure led Lone Star Steakhouse and Saloon to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection in 2017. Ultimately, this resulted in the closure of all U.S. locations by 2019. According to the provided information, the only remnant of the brand today is a single, independently owned Lone Star Steakhouse operating in Guam. Well, those places might be gone, but the taste of that food and the good times linger on, don't they? Did we jog your memory about a favorite spot we missed? Tell us about it down in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip back in time, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell so you won't miss our next nostalgic journey. Thanks for joining us.